Coach, you're approaching 30 years professionally in the game of soccer. It's this year's your first year as sporting director within the team. Give me an idea of what success looks like for Fort Wayne FC and Fort Wayne this year.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure, and it's our second season, but in many ways it feels like our first. There's been so many changes within our organization, and really, if you think back to 2 years ago when the whole project got off the ground, we ran into the COVID era, and so our first season was canceled. Coming out of that into our second season, which was our first inaugural season on the field, just playing felt like a win. There was just so much going on that you weren't sure how it was going to go. And there were so many amazing things that happened in the community, the crowds, the support, the fans, a lot of the work behind the scenes in the club development that people probably don't recognize. We didn't really have the success on the field that you would hope. And so I'm hoping this year, in year 2, that we're able to start matching on the field a lot of the good work that's gone on behind the scenes.
Fantastic. For a lot of our listeners, this may be the first time they're experiencing a Fort Wayne FC game, kind of now that it's established and growing the city. Yeah. As a fan, with you being the master of the ring, head coach of things, what can we do as a community for you guys to help kind of build the team and build the sport here?
Yeah, it's really amazing. So I spent, from most of the fall, so the 3-4 month period, in the identification, scouting, recruiting process. It's traveling all around the country, talking to players multiple times every day, over and over again. And one of the things that came out in that was really interesting. The number of guys that played on other teams last summer, good teams last summer, that said, I want to come play in Fort Wayne. And it's because they came to our stadium and it feels like something's happening. There's a real environment at our game. It's exciting, you pull up, the organization's great, the crowd energy was great. If we can build off of that, not just continue it, but actually build off of that, we've got something really special going there.
So you talked a little bit about recruiting. For those of our listeners that don't necessarily know your background, you spent quite some time in the college level of things. Mm-hmm. Does that compare in terms of bringing a high school kid into college and bringing some athletes here to Fort Wayne FC? Is that
I think it's very comparable, and relationship driven like anything else is. So the college network is my bread and butter because I spent 30 years there, and so it's easy for me to pick up a phone at school X and call the guy because he's a friend of mine and say, hey, which players? And so a lot of it was done in just building those contacts and networking to get the initial identification of a player, and then we go and see them and see if they fit.
I spent some years playing, and you always have a variety of different characters within the locker room. And then when you get to this professional level, you have such a pool from all around the world. Can you kind of give our listeners an idea of what the locker room looks like in terms of the culture within the team when you're pulling from such a variety of different cultures?
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the experience is that you get to hang out with all these guys from all over the world. Literally, when you see our roster, they come from all over the world. There's a great video on YouTube where there's a coach in a locker room and he starts screaming at the guys in a different language as he goes around the locker room, and it can feel like that sometimes. But we do all speak the universal language, which is that of the game, the world's game, and so it's a great starting point. So when you sit in front of a locker room and you've got 30 guys and there's all of these difference that you're faced with, different countries, different backgrounds, different religions, different cultures, all of these differences. How you bring them together, it's like an alchemy. It's like it's not an exact science. It's like how it all fits together is really fun to watch.
Do you have any good lost in translation stories?
Well, even just today, our first player arrived from Japan on Sunday night, and he's the first one into town. Everybody else is coming in today and over the next few weeks. And his name is Riku, Riku, and we found that it's actually pronounced like.
Okay.
So we've been calling him Riku for about 3 weeks in the office, and it's like he probably won't answer to that because it's not how you pronounce his name. And so little details like that start to come out. And again, it's the most enjoyable part of it. I said this to someone the other day. It's like the old jokes. Like an African, an Egyptian, and a Canadian walk into a bar, like that could be our team on a Tuesday night. You know what I mean? Like that is
walk into Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah, that is kind of who we are, and And we love that part of it because we all learn about ourselves as we learn about each other, and coming together. It's kind of what the club represents. It's we want to be this kind of light in the community, using the game as a vehicle to teach all of these other things that the world desperately needs right now. And that's what we're doing. And so we're a great example of that within our own team.
Speaking of community in Fort Wayne specifically, right when I came to town, you guys were having essentially open tryouts in the community.
Yeah.
Are there any local names that our listeners need to keep an ear out for Fort Wayne?
Well, there are 2 young guys that came through that process that are on that final roster of 30. And so Bill Okumu and Hillary Odiambo are both Kenyan born kids that were coming. They go to school in the St. Louis area, graduating high school here in the next few days, and we'll be going to college next fall. Actually, fun for them is that DeMarcus Beasley saw them at a pickup soccer game somewhere in the area and invited them to our tryout.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys are graduating high school. What's the age range of the roster that we're looking at?
They'll be on the young end of it, but we are probably in that 18 and I believe 25 or 26 on the other end. We're a different mix than maybe we were last year, because last year we were kind of a real thin slice of the college age, that 18 to 22. We've added in a little bit of experience on the other end of it to go with some of the youth that we have in the team.
Gotcha. As we're talking today, we are a little bit over a week out from opening day here in town. You do have a road game, but what's kind of like a day-to-day for you, Coach, leading up to the start of the season?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit of the circus going on right now because we have 31 players coming in from all over the place. And so that's the first order of business, is just who's picking them up at the airport, how are we getting to, we house them at the apartments at Purdue Fort Wayne, who have been a great partner for us. Those apartments are not yet ready yet. So because they're finishing their semester of school, and so we'll stay at another great partner of ours at the Holiday Inn Express, or the Holiday Inn, not Express, but Holiday Inn early on. And so even just managing meals and training and rides and carpooling and all of the different things that go on behind the scenes, that we have an incredible staff of people that are working on those details. But that's part of it, is trying to move the team and group dynamic of getting them where they need to be on the day, and making the day focus solely on their ability to perform. And so we want all the chaos, them not to notice it. We want them to make sure everything's just kind of set and rolling out for them.
You spoke of the day. Now, when it comes to match day, how does that kind of transfer? Can you give our listeners that don't have any sort of background in soccer, as the head coach, what is the preparation for you on match day?
Yeah, what we'll do on a typical match day, if we're at home, for example, we'll gather sometime mid-morning as a group, and we'll do some activation exercises, get some touches just to get their bodies awake and moving. They'll have a team meal together. We'll meet and do some last-minute scouting, the things that we've been putting into place during the week for that particular game. And then we usually try and let them get some time to get their legs up and get some rest. And then we'll meet back at the stadium. And because we have a larger squad, we have about 31 players in the total roster, we're only allowed to dress 18 on a given game day. And so there's a group of guys that, in the idea of squad rotation, will be preparing to play the next game. And so we'll train that group during the day that's not playing that night, and then come in and focus on the game in the evening.
Now, as the guy from the music station in town, match day, you got to get yourself in the zone.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a huge soccer question, but if you had like the aux cord in the locker room, what are we listening to get us all pumped up for the game?
Listen, I'm an older guy, and so I'm an 80s modern rock alternative guy, and so I grew up listening to that kind of Manchester scene, Oasis and Stone Roses, and I love that kind of scene, and that's actually very soccer oriented in England. If you go, it's still kind of playing through. If you go to Man City, you're going to hear the Oasis for sure. And so I love that kind of thing. Very likely in our locker room today, though, you're going to hear a lot of rap and a lot of hip hop.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, you bring up Man City, who is arguably the biggest name when it comes to Puma. You guys just got the brand new partnership with Puma. I would say it's Man City blue, but it is what it is. Can you tell us about the process of getting involved with Puma and the design of the jerseys this year, and what got us to
Yeah.
on the field this year.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of direct involvement in that contract and what have you, although I do hear about it a lot. I mean, DeMarcus Beasley played for Man City, and so if there is a connection to the Man City Blue, he might have something to say about that. But it's been great. They've been great partners with us. It's obviously a football, soccer brand where it's recognizable worldwide, which adds legitimacy to your club when you're able to wear the brand. The greatest thing for us about that, though, is they're not only excited about what we're doing as a soccer team and what we're building as a club in terms of our soccer, they're really excited about what we plan to do in the community. You know, our work with the Boys and Girls Club last year and the Fort Wayne Cares and all of the different projects that we have going, they're just as excited about that as we are. And so that makes them a great partner for us.
Beyond the kit itself and merch and X, Y, and Z, is there the new relationship with Puma, is that different than what you guys have in the past in terms of facilities and equipment and X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I think those things will play themselves out as we continue to grow as a club and we build, you know, we're moving into our own training facilities and eventually into our own stadium. I think as long as we're doing it and they're in lockstep with us, they're going to be a great partner to grow with us.
You spoke a little bit about Puma being excited about your involvement with the community. Can you give our listeners who might not have any idea what you guys are doing in the community, what you're doing with the Boys and Girls Club?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different projects that we are in the planning stages and actually in the implementation stages of. So our players will be out and about in the community. And you know, as a coach, it's always been very important to me to give your players opportunities to give back. Right? Every one of them will tell a story on their own about how somebody in their community made it possible for them to fall in love and to play the game, and so there's a chance for them to give back. I actually think as well, from just a team standpoint, you know, the clearest path to achieving your goals is to first help someone else achieve theirs. I think that's really true. And so I want to try and make sure that we are giving our guys an opportunity to do just that.
Spoken like a true coach.
Yeah. But they're great role models. They're good guys. They're, you know, young people, their eyes will light up when they see them out and about in the community. And so what a wonderful way to get started in the game if you're a young person, maybe in a neighborhood where soccer isn't as popular as some other sports.
100%.
And then all of a sudden you see someone that looks like you, that comes from a background like yours, that's actually making it at a certain level. It shows you that it's possible for you as well.
You have quite a lot of experience within the game for a little bit of time, and you've worked with a variety of different people around the world. I have some personal relationships that have seen kind of the youth academies of the United States grow quite a bit. I mean, that's kind of the standard overseas when you see this stuff happen in Europe. Guys aren't going to college, or they're coming to the United States to go to college, and we're pulling from that kind of age demographic. What's kind of been the transition of the last 20 years or so from what it was to potentially making a Fort Wayne FC Youth Academy in the years to come? Yeah,
I mean, the game has grown so much. You know, ever since I was a little kid, the game's coming, it's coming. You'd always hear this, like, oh, the sport's about ready to take off, it's about ready to take off. And sometimes you wonder, well, is it going to ever really take off? But when you stand and you look at it now, it's certainly done that. I mean, you go to an MLS stadium, Nashville just opened their stadium over the weekend, and 35,000 of the most, you know, exuberant fans that you'll ever see. Seattle's filling their stadium. They'll play, I think, tomorrow night in the CONCACAF Champions League final. I'm sure they'll have 60 or 70,000 people at the game.
I'm unfortunately an FC Cincinnati guy, so
yeah,
we're struggling.
Yeah, but even FC Cincinnati is another example, though, with a beautiful facility, and they're filling it. And the environment, it's a real thing now. You know, I came out of college in the era where there was no MLS. It hadn't happened yet. Right, so there was a weird time where we played professionally in leagues with the initials would change every year, and you know, you weren't making a lot of money, but you were just trying to keep going and play for as long as you could. And then you watch the MLS come, and then the first decade of MLS, it's like, is it going to make it? Is it going to make it? No one asks that question anymore. I mean, you know, real stars and real players. So now that, you know, the next evolution of that is we're putting players, young players from America, bred in American academies all over the place, in huge teams in Europe. I mean, you're a Chelsea guy, you know, Pulisic playing there. It's an amazing accomplishment to play at that level, and we're putting an incredible number. We'll have the youngest team in the World Cup in November, and so you know, it's really happening here. And so that's one of the things that we're hopeful down the road when we're ready is, can we help and start identifying our own niche of player development that we can put players, whether it's to our own first team at the pro level or beyond.
Speaking of development, any developments when it comes to an official word on what's happening stadium-wise? I mean, we don't have
I'm not
behind curtains or anything.
I'm not the one to ask that question
Sure.
to.
We're moving in the right direction.
We are moving in a direction. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
good to know. Any sort of like 5, 10, 15-year plan for the team?
Not
in
really.
Outlook?
That's not for me to answer.
5, 10, 15 weeks. I get you. I hear you.
Yeah.
A lot of parents might not necessarily have the background that we do growing up as big soccer fans, but their kids are very interested when they come to these games, and they don't necessarily know X from Y. Any tips on kind of involvement within their kids' lives of not knowing what to do with soccer and kind of getting
it's really not that complicated, actually.
Don't use your hands.
Yeah. You're trying to get the ball into the other team's goal.
Sure.
Yeah, and not using your hands.
Well, so basic offsides explanation for me then, Coach?
Yeah.
It's easier with, I guess, tools or representation on a screen.
Yeah, there has to be 2 defenders between the ball and the goal.
Perfect.
When the ball is played forward. So.
You spend a lot of time in the college game. Recommendations of high school kids looking to get noticed by kind of college scouts, and best way to go about maybe creating videos, or what would you?
I mean, it is. It's a growing market. I read somewhere recently that there was almost 1 million high school seniors playing soccer in America. Not all of them are trying to play college soccer,
sure,
right? But that's a large number, and to say that there's only 204 or 5 NCAA Division I soccer teams, and if they take about 5 players on an average a year in a recruiting process, there's about 1,000 kids out of 1 million that are going to make it to a Division I roster. There's other divisions, Division II, Division III, there's NAI, there's junior college, there's all different options as well. But it's very difficult to make it. And so you have to become your own marketer, you have to be proactive, you have to be persistent. If we hear stories in football or basketball of kids sitting by the phone waiting for it to ring with scholarship offers, and soccer just doesn't work that way. And so you have to really get yourself out there. So again, developing highlight reels now with the internet and YouTube links, you can send an email and click on links. It's very simple for a college coach to see you and get a taste of what you can do, but you've got to put yourself out there for sure.
When it comes to having DeMarcus within this roster, obviously, just based on our interaction today, we're very happy to have you leading this team, but to have someone that's gone through the ranks of it all and from Fort Wayne, I don't think many of us know how blessed we are to have DeMarcus a part of this team. Can you talk about that relationship and development?
Yeah, he's, it's been, I guess, for about a year now that we've been working together, and I obviously knew of him but didn't know him prior to. Certainly one of the greatest players the United States has ever produced, and the fact that he comes right here from Fort Wayne is pretty cool. But without question, one of the best people that I know. He's his accomplishments within the game speak for themselves, but he's not big-headed, he doesn't brag about it, he's as down to earth as you can get, and he's got big ambitions for the club, not just on the field, but in the community. His heart's really in what we're doing off the field, so we align very well that way, and he's been great. And obviously, his name carries a certain credence and it opens a lot of doors, and we're able to do some things as a club that other clubs at our level aren't able to do. So a lot of what's happening is due to DeMarcus and his work, and he'll never take the credit for it because that's just not the kind of person that he is, but it's true. He's as good a representative of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Fort Wayne FC that you could ever hope for.
Closing thoughts for us today, Coach. Outlook on this season. Anything you'd like to tell the people of Fort Wayne?
Yeah, I'd love to tell them to come out. First of all, and really help us get this thing going. We've got, I believe, a very talented team. 31 guys that don't know each other, so we have a short window to help them get to know each other and get to know the city and get comfortable here so that they can perform. And it's great, you go out to dinner or you walk through the mall or you get gas at the gas station and you see someone with a Fort Wayne FC shirt on, or they recognize we're becoming a real viable thing here in town. And it helps the guys bond to the city and to the club in a way that really makes a difference on the field. So we hope that people come out and enjoy themselves.
Who's your pick for the Champions League final?
City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Anytime. Yeah, love it.